Technology has given us countless ways to honor important people and events. TV, movies, books, even art exhibits. But the most lasting way to honor humans and history has always been an old-fashioned piece of sculpture. From the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor to the replica of, well, whoever, near Town Square. Nothing is more inspiring than a bronze cast. Just try to keep the pigeons off. Even people who think they don't like art are still surprised and delighted when, unexpectedly, they see a piece of sculpture decorating our public spaces. That's the purpose of Art Research Enterprises, which for 25 years has been lighting, brightening, and enlightening us with public art. For example, Dr. Seuss in Massachusetts, George Mason in Washington, D.C., and Wilt Chamberlain in Philadelphia. Art Research's factory can be found in Pennsylvania Dutch country, Lancaster to be precise, where the Amish avoid modern technology and live their lives as their ancestors did hundreds of years ago. How wonderful that we live in a country where we're free to do just that. And that Becky Ault and Mike Cunningham were free to pursue their happiness through sculpture when they founded Art Research. This is not a common business. I grew up in the Northeast with these beautiful statues and everything, and then you think, wait a minute, someone has to make those. And that's you.
Actually, we got our start in conservation and restoration. We started in a garage, just the two of us.
Correct.
A B300 furnace, a little small, well, it goes up to 200 pounds.
Oh, those B300s,
yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
The Art Research story began in Southeast Ohio, where Mike and Becky were restoring public art. Soon, artists began asking them to cast original works, too, which they did in a small Southeast Pennsylvania foundry. Today, they produce hundreds of pieces a year in their 40,000 square foot factory using a technique as old as biblical Mesopotamia, lost wax casting. It's a long multi-step process that allows sculptors to work in their preferred medium, clay, but still finish up with metal. They call it lost wax because a replica of the clay sculpture made of wax is lost when a ceramic mold, the second of two molds, is fired in a kiln. Liquid metal poured into that mold forms the finished art, as you'll soon see. Smaller works are made as single pieces, but the larger, more imposing ones are designed in sections and then joined by welding. History teaches us that great inventors have always stood on the shoulders of giants, and sometimes those giants are parents who pass on to their children the manual arts they learned from their parents. That's the story being told here. Children watching their father at his workbench. The American Legacy. What do you think?
That's a great title. Sounds good. It's perfect.
All right. Next up in the transformation of clay sculpture into bronze is to make a mold of silicon rubber. Even this step is an art.
You have to start off with it real runny, so it'll go into all the nooks and crannies nice. And then as you build your layers, you go with it thicker and thicker.
The mold needs to be just thick enough to hold the shape. Then it's pulled open and the clay sculpture destroyed. Now hot wax has to take on the shape encased in the mold. Before it can be poured, though, the first layer has to be applied by hand.
I'm painting liquid wax melted into the rubber mold.
The techniques that she's using, you can't get bubbles, so that's why she's dabbing. If you just stroked it across, it would create bubbles.
With the edges covered, it's time for the wax.
Oh, here it comes.
After the wax cools, the rubber is peeled off, leaving a wax form from which a ceramic mold will be made. It's into that mold that the molten bronze will be poured. Christine adds some plumbing or gating to the wax, ensuring that, when the time comes, the liquid metal reaches everywhere.
I'm going to weld it right on there with a really good deep weld.
What's the licorice for? I noticed you got some red licorice over
The red
there.
licorice, those are for the vents. It's going to go up this way so that when the metal goes in, all the gases, the stuff that we don't want to be trapped in the piece, come up out of these pieces. This will be melted out. The wax disappears
yeah, I got you. Okay,
before the metal
sure.
goes in.
The wax replica is dipped into a slurry of ceramic material. As with the rubber mold, layers are added until a thick shell forms. As the shell hardens in a hot kiln, the wax melts away, leaving a hollow ceramic duplicate of the original clay sculpture. Optimal temperature for a smooth bronze pour is at least 2,050 degrees.
Hey, 2,013 degrees Fahrenheit. Not quite hot enough.
It takes practiced choreography to pour the molten metal from a crucible into the mold.
So the bronze has solidified and the mold has cooled to a certain stage where now we can open it. And you can see there's some fractures where the shell has actually started to break away.
There, you start seeing the face.
Oh, yeah.
There
There's
comes, there it
Dad.
comes.
So this is like a dig, the antiquity piece that you're now discovering and uncovering.
Do you ever use the ball on the ball peen there, Dennis? It's my favorite hammer, the ball peen. That's like saying it. Ball peen.
When the gating is removed, fine touches are made and edges smooth, sometimes using a pneumatic rotary grinder. At last, it's time to apply the finish. You can rely on Chris to know which patina is appropriate.
All right, we're going to put that there so I have something as a guide. And the first thing we're going to do is go with this chemical. This is a little bit of liver sulfur. You want to smell that?
Nice.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Smells like locker
wonderful,
room.
isn't it? Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, watch what it does to bronze. What you're seeing there, that color change, is we're forcing the metal to oxidize. Now, bronze, if left on its own, would eventually oxidize on its own, but the color would be inconsistent, and you're never sure exactly what color you're going to get. Now, we are going to heat it up and get rid of all the moisture.
To warm up his coffee there.
There you go.
From making the clay model to the final polish, each step of this delicate process requires the skills of either an artist or an artisan.
We have an apprenticeship program here also. The staff there, the teachers and the leaders that will train the apprentices.
They're all cross-trained.
Uh-huh.
In other words, if I need someone to make a mold or I need someone to go on the site because a sculpture's been damaged, every staff member can go.
Are the masters?
Correct.
That's correct.
Right. They can produce all 13 steps of the process.
Maybe on the T-shirt you should say, I could perform all 13 steps.
Here's hoping that each generation will continue to pass on its skills to the next generation. And on, and on, and on.